And welcome back to the channel. Mr. Acolyte here, coming at you with my starter guide for Piccolo. Piccolo's a character that's been in the game since the very beginning, and because of that, he's seen numerous constant changes to his kit, and I feel in the current version, he has become one of the most fun characters to play in the entire game. So we're going to be breaking down all the things you need to know about how to play Piccolo properly in this version of the game. As usual with all of my guides, this will be broken down into sections. Each section will lead to the next. That way everything is nice and easy to follow, by giving you all the information you need to go online and start having some fun with Piccolo. Also, if you find this guide helpful at all, consider leaving a like, as it does help out the channel a lot, and I do greatly appreciate it. If you want to see more content like this, as well as guides and match videos from other fighting games, be sure to subscribe. But with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump right on into this. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with definitely the hardest part about playing Piccolo, and that is, of course, his neutral. Now, it's definitely no secret that this is the weakest aspect of Piccolo's game plan by far, but the good news is, after we get past this, every other aspect of him is insanely strong. So let's go ahead and break down Piccolo's neutral. So what is neutral? Neutral is basically the start of the match. When the match starts, neither you or the opponent has the advantage, and until one of you do claim the advantage, you remain in the neutral phase. The neutral phase ends once either you or your opponent make contact in some sort of meaningful way. Now, why is Piccolo considered so weak at neutral? It's pretty simple. The short answer is he does not have a Ki Blast. His S is a grab, so he does not have a good way of immediately threatening from long range. That's not to say that he has no options. He does have some pretty okay options, and we're going to go ahead and cover those. But the first thing I would say about Piccolo, my first recommendation I would say, is to focus on patience. When it comes to playing Piccolo, you just want to really relax, don't panic, and pick your spots. And the main way you'll do this is by focusing on movement, namely your super jumps. If you're not big on super jumping, Piccolo is one of those characters that's going to force you to get better at it and to force you to use it more in your game. If you don't know, if you hold the S button in this game while you're moving around, it'll make all your jumps into super jumps simply by hitting up. Piccolo, again, is a great character for getting used to this because super jump movement is far, far superior to regular movement. Let's look at some examples here. If I do a regular jump, there's a chance I could land on him, but there's also a chance, as you can see, that I land on the Ki Blast. However, with a super jump, I can perfectly control my air momentum as well as how fast I fall. With a regular jump, you fall at normal speed. With a super jump, you can hold down and immediately plant yourself on the ground, not to mention how much space you cover. With a single dash super jump, you can cover more than the screen's distance. This makes you very threatening because if your opponent ever does let up, you know, a lot of people play like this where they're just, you know, bunny hopping and not really doing anything. A singular dash super jump can easily put you on a collision course with an opponent doing that. And even if they're not doing that, because of the nature of floats, it's easy to change your trajectory and just back off if you don't like what you see once you start moving forward. Where again, if you do a regular jump, this isn't an option. Once you jump, you've committed. But with a super jump, again, you have total control over where you land. So this is an aspect that you should be incorporating with every character, but with Piccolo, it's extremely important because, again, you really need to pick your spots. Now, moving on to his actual neutral tools in terms of attacks. The number one, you probably already know about it, you probably already seen it, his JL. This is possibly the best jumping button in the entire game. It has a gigantic hitbox and a ghostly hurt box, meaning that in air-to-air exchanges, your button is almost always gonna win. Not only that, it is fantastic against Super Dash. as well as raw tag. 6S. This is the closest thing Piccolo has to an actual ki blast. It is a beam property poke that goes very far relatively quickly. It starts up in about 16 frames and it almost reaches full screen. It reads about 2/3 of the screen. So this is a pretty good option. If you feel like your opponent is within range, you can use this to poke here and there. Just be careful you don't whiff it because it is pretty unsafe on whiff. But if you are able to tag them with it, this does beat the startup of ki blasts. It beats super dash, and it is vanishable. You can see I'm going to set 6 to 17 here to reflect. But if you do this into vanish, just like with any normal beam, it'll allow you to immediately get in as long as they block it. You can also use 3S in a similar way. His 3S is the same move basically, but it is the air version. This is good for knocking the opponent out of the air. If you get a read on an opponent who's just going to keep jumping, you can use 3S to bring them down into block strings and assists. And it works really well against air attacks because it is completely air invulnerable. Next up, 236S, his homing ki blast. Now, this move is kind of deceptive because on paper you're going to think that this is a really good neutral tool. In some ways it is, but in most ways it's very unreliable. That's due to the simple fact that it just easily loses at just about everything. You throw this out, your opponent is going to be able to eat through it with just about any kind of ki blast in the game, as long as it's not like one of those, like, you know, Bardock single ki blast that doesn't have much priority. In those rare occasions, you can kind of get away with doing this and then, you know, chasing it to get in. But just keep in mind, most characters have good ki blasts or have fast beams. So when they see you do this, they're just going to shoot it and get it off the screen. So you're going to have to act accordingly. Now, these next two options are what I would call more risky, and they should be used very sparingly. So these next two options are good counter neutral options. Like when you're at neutral and you have a read, you should use these to counter your opponent, but you shouldn't just throw them out because they're very dangerous and they can get countered very easily. So starting with his command grab, if you hold S and forward, you can do a full screen command grab. This is unblockable and it has armor, so it'll eat through beams, assists, and ki blasts. So if you have the read, this is really good because you can eat through just about anything and you get a combo for it. So keep that in mind, but just don't mindlessly throw it out because this can be very easy to punish. And basically in the exact same vein is the elbow drop. If you do 214M, he will teleport to the opponent and do this elbow drop on them. If you just do 214M by itself, the elbow drop will always be a cross up. So this can be a good way to catch the opponent off guard, but again, don't just do it randomly because it's very easy to 2H. You can even make it a block mix up by holding the M. If you hold the M, it keeps the same animation and sound effect, but it hits on the same side. So this can be a mix-up, but again, it's 2Hable, so don't throw it out too much. You want to use this when you have a read on any sort of full screen move. If they do a full screen move, this is especially good against big animation moves like beams. And before we finish talking about his solo neutral options, let's go ahead and talk about his unique cancel system real quick. We talked earlier about his 214S and how this is pretty good at neutral, but it gets a little bit better when you start working in the cancels. Every time you do 214S, you gain the ability to cancel the recovery into a different special move. So for example, you can do 236 into 214, effectively putting 2 ki blast orbs on the screen. You can also cancel it into the dash to sort of use the ki blast as sort of a cover as you go in. And lastly, you can throw out one of the orbs and then do an elbow drop in the recovery frames. This can be strong because as you can see, I am plus if they do end up blocking it. And if it hits them, you actually get a combo for this. So because of that, it's going to be really tempting to throw this out and then elbow drop. But again, make sure if you do this, you do it sparingly, because the moment your opponent sees you do this, they're going to be waiting to see what your next cancel option is. So again, you need to play patient and you have to play smart. Whenever you throw this out, you don't always have to cancel it into something else. Sometimes throw out one, sometimes throw out two, sometimes throw out one and do your dash cancel. Just be smart about it. Don't be predictable and look for the right opening. A good time to actually cancel into the elbow would be to throw out a homing blast, wait and see if they try to counter it with a key blast, and then go for the elbow. Okay, so now that we've covered all of his solo neutral options, let's go ahead and start talking about assist options, because assists obviously are the biggest part of this game. They dictate basically everything that you do, and Piccolo is no different. As a matter of fact, he is one of the most assist reliant characters in the game, because flat out assists just make his job a lot easier. Let's go over some examples of that. So Piccolo as a character heavily requires you to have neutral assists, something for example like a beam. Simply by adding a beam to his kit, it cuts out a lot of the hard work and the heavy lifting involved with trying to get your offense started. Anytime you call a beam, it's going to cut off the whole bottom of the screen. So this is where you combine your assist calling with your patience and your movement. If the opponent's already airborne, 3S becomes a very, very strong poke when paired with assists. And possibly the best example is how much better your homing key blast becomes when you introduce neutral assists. Now, it doesn't necessarily need to be a beam assist. He can do a lot with short range assists such as uppercuts or lariats as well. We talked about what a good movement option his 236L is in the air. When paired with assists, this becomes even more threatening. To summarize, yes, Piccolo's neutral is a little rough, but he does have some really strong options, especially when you pair it with assists. Again, it's just all about being patient and not trying to rush in, because the good thing is once you do finally get in with Piccolo, your reward is pretty hefty. Okay, so now that we have a good understanding of how Piccolo's neutral works, let's talk about what happens when we finally get in, that being the next section, his offense. We'll start by talking about his buttons. First button we're talking about is probably the most important, and that is his 2L. This is the source of all his mix-up potential. As everybody knows, if you have a low-hitting 2L in this game, you're more dangerous because it makes your mix-ups more potent, because the opponent actually has to guess if you are going to go overhead or low. That means that you can do even the most basic super dash mix-up and put the opponent in a pretty risky and dangerous situation. Next up, for LL. This is a great option that not all characters have, but when you do, it's really, really strong because it lets you do your jab twice. This is just really good because it keeps the opponent guessing. Not only can you cancel your jab into Dragon Rush, but you can also cancel it into your auto combo or any of your other buttons. It's just a really great stagger button, and because his is only -3, that just really enables him to get his staggers going and keep the opponent guessing. Next, 5LL. Speaking of auto combo, that is his auto combo string, 5LL. This one is spectacular for many reasons. The main two things I should say, is it lunges very far. So the likeliness of you just tagging someone with this is very high. And then as you can see, it's -2, which is extremely good. -2 is barely unsafe, meaning again, this is a great stagger point. It's very easy for you to just restart your pressure here and it's very hard for the opponent to commit to an attack, because if you let go with a medium or a low because they think you're going to start over again, that could end up in their death. When it comes to mediums, there's not too much to say about his 2M. It has decent range. You know, it's a low medium starter, but keep in mind it is unsafe. If you want to end your block string safely, you have to use 5M. 5M is his safe ender. It is -5. So when you're staggering, whether you stagger with LL, 4LL, 2LL, 5L, 2L, whatever, make sure that when you get to the end, you use 5M, because all his other block string enders are unsafe, including his H, -9, and his 6S, -7. So everything is punishable except for 5M. So when you're going to end your string and you're not sure if your opponent's going to take the bait, make sure you end with 5M. On the subject of 6S, however, if you do get this out, we talked about it before in the neutral section, but this jails into Vanish. So if you want to kind of try to steal a turn, if you're not sure, you know, how to end your string, let's say that you put a big delay in your H, the opponent didn't take the bait, and you do get the 6S out, if you feel like it, you can Vanish and get another attempt to start your pressure over, so keep that in mind. There is a gap in 6S, however, so when you do it, the opponent can reflect the 6S itself because there's a gap, so keep that in mind. But on the bright side, that also means if your opponent is mashing, 6S is a auto frame trap. So anytime you just throw this out, if the opponent is mashing, you're going to hear that counter, and you have plenty of time to hit that H button and take them for a ride. It's also important to notice that 6S has enough block stun that you can super dash into it. This means that you can do super dash call assist mix up from your 6S anytime the opponent blocks it. Next up, let's talk about his special move. This is another area where Piccolo is really blessed. To put it simply, Piccolo is sort of auto mix. He has mix-ups just built into his normal special moves. So unlike other characters where you have to like find a way to open your opponent up through, you know, 50-50s and, you know, these complicated strings, Piccolo, honestly, he just kind of does it by himself simply by using the Demon Elbow, 236L. This works really, really well most of the time on most opponents. You will get those opponents who will be looking for it and trying to jump out of it. We'll talk about that. Basically, what you want to do is you just want to be creative with this move. If you're very predictable, like let's say you just do something like LLMM elbow, they're probably going to block it and they're probably going to be looking for it. What you want to do is you want to use it in situations where the opponent is looking for a mix-up. Like, for example, after they block an IADM. From this point, they're going to be wondering, are you going to dash in and do a low? Are you going to dash in and start your block string pressure? Are you going to dash in and throw? Are you going to try to command grab them? Are you going to try to 6M and call your assist? At moments like this, we call this the mental stack. When the mental stack is high, that's when the elbow becomes a strong option, because everything I just listed is a very good option when you have frame advantage. So keep those options in mind, and that's when you want to work in the elbow. Instead of going for something that's easy to block and predict, like the 6M, instead go for the elbow. And again, if you do elbow into assist call, even if they block it, you'll still keep your turn. That's what makes this such a powerful option. And again, due to the power of the mental stack in this game, let's say a situation like this, right? If they block your beam and you get in behind the cover of the beam, this is another good situation to work it in, because once somebody blocks a beam, what are they going to be doing? They're going to be looking to see what option you're going to choose. So if instead of trying to go for a low or an overhead or starting your block string pressure, you sneak in that elbow, it's a lot less likely to hit than if you're just super predictable and then go like this. The number one way people are going to try to beat Demon Elbow is by holding up back, because when people fight Piccolo, they're automatically going to know that you're looking for that. And that's where your stagger game comes in, because again, we talked about how good Piccolo staggers are and the fact that he has good lows. That's when you want to really slow down your buttons and catch people trying to jump by putting in those gaps in your string. Even if you don't do the elbow, if they're looking for the elbow, it just makes it that much more threatening. After you've conditioned the opponent that you're using the elbow, even in situations like this, they're going to really be looking hard for it because you've introduced the option. That's when 236H becomes really powerful, because once the opponent is looking for it, they're going to see this animation that has Piccolo go behind you, but then hit you on the same side as a fake cross-up. And the fake cross-up becomes very, very strong in that situation. Now, another layer to this whole elbow mix-up is another thing that we talked about, the 236S cancels. Believe it or not, this is very, very good on block and on offense as well. Because in this situation, if the opponent is trying to jump out, this will beat it automatically. And what's even better is if they don't jump, you can still do the elbow and it's not a true block stun. So they have to switch their block, and because there's so much noise on the screen, it's easier for the cross up to go through, because obviously they can't really see you. And that's doubly true for the EX version. If you do this into EX, suddenly you just have all sorts of noise on the screen. You got an explosion, you got the teleport sound, and you got Piccolo disappearing and reappearing. So add all these things in with everything we were already talking about, and pretty much, yeah, you're gonna be opening people up with this character. Okay, so now that we have a really good understanding of both Piccolo's neutral and how to open the opponent up, let's talk about what happens after we open them up, and that is, of course, the combos. So for this section, as usual, there's not really a lot for me to explain, since, you know, combos are the easy part of picking up any character. I'll just show you some examples from the easier routes to the more advanced routes, and we'll have the notations on screen. Let's go ahead and check these out. Okay, so now that we have a really good understanding of most of Piccolo's kit, let's go ahead and bring it home by talking about his Oki, that being the moment where the opponent is getting up off the ground. This is yet another area where Piccolo really excels. Let's go ahead and break it down. So this section is going to be pretty easy to talk about. Piccolo, he's got a lot of options, but it kind of all comes back to the same thing, that being his homing Ki Blast. So basically with Piccolo, every single time you get a knockdown, you can put out the orb and the opponent just has to deal with it. This completely negates the entire wake-up game for them. It's kind of a trade-off, to be honest with you. Basically, by using this, you are taking away all of the opponent's major options, but you're still putting yourself in a bit of a RPS, or rock, paper, scissors situation. Now, obviously, the homing Ki Blast is just that. It's a Ki Blast. So the number one thing that the opponent is going to want to do is going to be to super dash. So you're always going to have to be ready for this option, because 9 times out of 10, the opponent is just not going to care. They're not going to want to deal with that. They don't want you to have another turn, so they're going to super dash. One easy way to deal with this is simply to do IDL. We talked about how fantastic his IDL is already. The Oki area is no different. If you do IDL, you'll basically cover every option. If they up tech and do nothing, you'll staircase them down. If they wake up and do nothing, you'll block string them with an overhead. If they wake up super dash either off the ground or in the air, you'll cleanly beat both options. The next option your opponent is likely to choose is Reflect. This is a pretty easy option to beat with Piccolo. All you really got to do is just 5L into 6S, and by doing this, you'll not only beat the super dash if they choose to do that, but you create a reflect proof trap if they try to reflect raw tag or do reflect buttons. And don't forget that you can enhance all of these mix-ups by switching up which orb you do. If you do 214S hold, you actually pull the opponent out of the corner. So everything we already talked about gets even more spicy when you start pulling them out of the corner, and even crazier if you pull them out of the corner and work in the dash. So yeah, just by using Piccolo's orb and assists, you have a ton of options to work with when the opponent is getting up off the floor. But of course, there's more to it than just his regular knockdown. Let's go ahead and talk about the big one, Piccolo's level 3 hard knockdown mix. Now, the big thing with hard knockdown is the opponent cannot choose how they tech. They have to stand up directly into a mix-up. And again, this is an area where Piccolo is terrifying. And the good thing is these are very straightforward and easy to understand, and most of them are pretty easy to do, so there's not really a lot for me to explain here. So kind of like with the combos, I'm just going to show you a series of examples. Let's check it out. Okay, getting close to the end now. Let's go ahead and cover the final section, and that is, of course, team building. Let's go ahead and talk about how to build a team for Piccolo, starting with assists. This one is pretty obvious, and we kind of already touched on it way earlier in the guide, but he desperately needs at least one really strong neutral assist, and the number one assist that he likes is beams. So luckily there are a lot of characters in the game with beam assists, so you have a lot of different options. As long as Piccolo has at least one beam assist behind him, he can function pretty well, and that includes beam likes. In my opinion, beam likes are even better, that being something like 18, 21, Zamasu, stuff like that is even better because he gets even better combo extensions off of it. But in terms of covering the neutral, he really just likes beams, so it shouldn't be too hard for you to find a character that you like that has some sort of a beam assist. For the second assist, this one is more optional, but what I would recommend is some sort of either fast assist or a lariat assist of some kind to help with his block strings. Even though, again, this isn't an area where he really needs help, it's nice to have that extra push. Like once he gets in, it's nice to have that extra bit of leverage. But the main thing I would say is try to find you a good lariat assist of some kind with good hit stun on it so he can get his restand grabs. I'll go ahead and show a couple of examples here, but Piccolo is at his most threatening when you can combo into his grab, as we showed in the combo section, and get his restand grab mix-ups. When it comes to Piccolo's assists himself and what he brings to a team, this is, again, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but this is another area where he really shines, starting with his A assist. What really needs to be said about Piccolo A? It's free neutral, it's auto defense, it's great after a super dash, it's fantastic in block strings, it augments your neutral, it augments your offense. It's insane. Just putting Piccolo A behind any character instantly makes that character way more scary. And even in the Oki area, like let's say you're somebody like Bardock who has very stiff Oki, suddenly now you have Piccolo Oki because you can call this on the opponent's wake up, mid-screen, or in the corner, and now they got a situation they got to deal with just like with Piccolo. So basically in all aspects, Piccolo A is ridiculous. Very easy to recommend. Now onto his next assist, which is my personal favorite, that being Piccolo B. If the opponent is attacking you and you call this, Piccolo is going to zap them. It's also just generally great in most situations where you just want a fast assist, like after a super dash or extending a block string, just any of the generic things you need. But what's really strong about it is just how fast it comes out, how quickly, and it's just really good at whiff punishing. And I can't tell you how many times in a match this assist has just completely shut down people who are swinging at me, and it's really become like my favorite assist in the entire game, honestly. For his C assist, there's not really much to say. It's an air tracking C, but it's a little on the slow side. You really should use either A or B. This one's decent because it is air tracking, and to be fair, the air tracking is pretty good. It's good at tagging people out of the air. The beginning is a parry, but as you can see, the follow-up attack has no invincibility, so it'll lose anyway. So not much for me to say about the C assist, but his A and B, either one of those are really strong, and they're gonna do a lot for your team. For team positions, this one is very easy. He is without a doubt a mid. Mid is where he belongs. You want your point character to be someone reliable and someone that builds a lot of meter, and then you want Piccolo to come in and spin that meter for you in a powerful way, such as with his restand mix-ups or his level 3 mix-up. And with that, we have reached the end of the How to Play Piccolo guide. Thanks so much for listening, guys. Hopefully by now you feel like you have a great understanding of Piccolo, his tools, and how he should be played. If you have any extra questions or you're confused about anything, feel free to leave a question down in the comments below. I'll definitely try to check it out as soon as I get the chance. You can also stop by my streams most nights around 8 p.m. here on YouTube or on Twitch if you want to join us there. But as always, you guys have a good one, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.